Dudes and dudettes, how are you guys? This is Chazzy and welcome back to The Mixer, the segment on this channel where I give you guys all sorts of detailed analyses from all walks of life, I talk about people, animals, places, food. Very rarely I talk about food, actually. That is really a rare gem. But hey, if it hasn't happened in The Mixer yet, it will eventually, because that's what this segment is for, for me to mix things up and just give you guys a bunch of random, tidbits of info from everywhere, literally everywhere, One of my favorite things to talk about is sports, athletes. That's kind of like my bread and butter, and today that's what this video is going to cover. However, I'm going to be delving into some uncharted territory here on my channel. This is going to be the first time ever that I'm going to be talking about this particular sport, and I'm not a very big fan of it, I will admit, so you guys will have to really kind of bear with me here as I, kind of ramble on a little bit. I did put together somewhat of a little cheat sheet of sorts, like a script, but I also have an article that I'm following here today, and in case you're completely lost and you don't know where this video came from, you might want to also check out my last one, which was playing Fight Night Champion, where I pit two very heavyweight masters, Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier against each other. That was a lot of fun, I actually enjoyed myself a lot more than I was expecting to, and I thought after that video it might be kind of fun to put together a vlog talking about one of them, which I'm pretty sure the title and thumbnail already gave away at this point, Muhammad Ali, also known as Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. That is his given birth name, that was his father's name and he just took it upon him there, so now the thing is that he later changed his name to Muhammad, because of his newfound religious beliefs, and many consider him to be the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time, if not the greatest boxer ever, regardless of weight class. And even me, who's kind of like a bantamweight, or like a featherweight within the sport, I have no idea how boxing works at all. Even I can recognize the greatness of Muhammad, And I know how boxing works somewhat. I know that it's two guys with gloves, punching each other in the face, trying to knock the other guy out, and there's a certain number of rounds, I get the basic gist of it, I know that there's some illegal moves that you can perform, but other than that, I am kind of illiterate when it comes to this, But Muhammad being a 6'3" giant with a reach of 78 inches, I can imagine it was really tough for anybody to take him down, And he actually had a very, very impressive record beginning with his amateur days, And he was literally unstoppable in his prime. Just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how good he was, he put up a total of 61 fights throughout his professional career, of which 56 he won, which is incredibly insane, man. That is just impressive. And of those 56 wins, 37s were by knockout, or KO. And all of that, put together becomes even more impressive when you take into consideration that he only had 5 losses to his name. He only lost 5 fights in his entire professional career. Not taking into consideration the period that he was inactive because of draft evasion, but I'll probably get to that later. I'm going to try to focus more on his actual fighting legacy, his prowess, and his techniques than what he actually did, because he was also a civil rights activist and, a larger-than-life public figure, but that's not really what I'm going to focus on today, Muhammad was pretty insane, man, I'm going to see if I can give you guys a pretty good amount of information without butchering the details, because like I said, I have no idea how this sport, I just know, man. I'm gonna try to see if I can give you guys something cool, okay? Speaking of giving you guys something cool, we're gonna take a look at a clip here of Muhammad from his early days, and this is specifically in his fight against Cleveland Williams in 1966. Take a look.
We have a knockdown in round 2. Here comes the champion, throws another right, misses the left, throws the right, he's got Williams hurt in mid-ring. Clay with a left, a right, a left. Williams with his back to us is getting hit at will, a left, a right. Clay has him going down on his, sitting down above us. He gets up immediately. He'll take another mandatory 8. Clay threw both hands up in the air, signal of victory. But Kessler is giving the mandatory 8. Williams shakes his head. Williams has been hurt. We have 12 seconds left in the round. A left misses by Williams. Williams will survive the round. A right, a left by Clay, a left and a right. Williams flat on his back. But the bell will ring, but they'll keep counting.
That was just to give you a small idea of the prowess of Muhammad Ali, and that was still in the early days, man, you know? That was already at the beginning of his pro career, but still very, very early on. Now, the thing with Muhammad is that he was very, very, you know, how can I say? He was brought up in a very rough and impoverished neighborhood, and there was a lot of racial segregation as well. He did experience a lot of racism growing up, you know, and that's kind of something that fueled the fires inside of him a lot. And when he was 12, his bike was stolen by a few street thugs, you know, and he told an officer that he was going to whoop their asses, but the officer said, hey, maybe you should learn how to fight first, kid, you know, gotta put them gloves up. And that's exactly what he did. He took up boxing, you know, he started to develop an interest in it, and he was trained. His trainer was actually, I can pull up, was Joe E. Martin, you know, he was actually the guy who trained him a lot, and his amateur career officially started in 1954, where he went on to put an astounding 100-5 record, you know, so 105 fights and 100 wins with 5 losses, you know, which was really damn impressive. I don't know, man, Muhammad was already on another level back then, you know, even though he was in his early 20s already, or maybe even before that. And his professional career actually began in 1960, the same year that he won an Olympic gold medal, you know, but on that occasion in the light heavyweight category, so he was already an up-and-coming boxer in his own right, you know, already kind of toying with his opponents and getting that done. And his first 3 years as a pro from 1960 to 63 saw him put up a record of 19-0 with 15 wins by knockout. So 19 wins, no losses, and 15 of those 19 wins were by knockout, you know. The rest would have been by technical knockout, which is when the ref decides that the fighter won by knockout. There is also this thing in boxing called the TKO, or total knockout, which is when an opponent knocks out an opponent, the other one in the first round. So Mike Tyson did that quite a bit. So now, as of course the years went on, he started to get more and more, you know, out there and climb through the ranks, and eventually he would challenge Sonny Liston for the world heavyweight title, you know, and this was actually considered to be one of the most controversial boxing fights in history, and one in the top 5 best sports moments of the 20th century, because that fight was brutal, was really sick, you know. Can't go into too much detail because I don't really know too much about it, but you know, I'm pretty sure if you're a fan of boxing and Muhammad, you know how this fight went down, you know exactly what happened. So he was the underdog, and the prelude to that fight was crazy, because we saw more of Muhammad's trash talking antics, where he was saying that he was going to, you know, he looks like a big ugly bear and even smells like a bear, and then when he was done, he was going to donate him to the zoo, you know. He just really got through there, and Muhammad's pulse rate was actually at 120, you know, more than double his normal 54. So people say that maybe he was just afraid, and that's why he was trash talking so much, you know, getting to his opponent's head, because he did have this habit of getting in your head with a lot of abrasive, you know, comment, not just trash talking, but literally insulting you or friends, peers, you know, getting in your grill. So when the time came to actually fight, you would get psyched out and go after him like a madman, which would work every single time. So the years went by, he would win his titles, you know, but eventually, you know, he also had fights against other fighters like Patterson as well, Rocky Marciano, you know, but there was a moment in his career where the draft evasion happened, you know, and now the major upset against Sonny Liston happened in 1964, and he was 22 when he won that heavyweight title. However, he actually refused to be drafted to the military 2 years later in 66 because of his new, you know, his new religious beliefs, you know, in opposition ethically to the Vietnam War. So he was accused of draft evasion and stripped of his boxing titles. You know, he was arrested, and he spent a few years without fighting, which of course led to the decline of his performance and his physical peak, you know. And he protested so much throughout that while trying to appeal the decision, you know, in the Supreme Court, and he did stay out of prison. Eventually the conviction was overturned in 1971, and by then he wasn't really the same Ali that we knew before, but he did return to boxing after this exile, and that's when he just became an even greater fighter. Like he wasn't the same Ali, but he became even more so of a legend in that right. Now, before we continue here, there is actually one more thing that I wanted to say that I think is really cool to say. So let's see here. Oh yeah, so throughout those years he lost a little bit of his peak, but this and that, but still Ali had these few tricks up his sleeves that no boxer before him ever used or has ever properly used since. But before I continue, let's take a look at another clip here. This is a snippet from his fight versus Zara Foley in 1967, a year after the previous clip that I showed.
See how well the challenger rolls back from those punches? And there's Foley down! Foley is up at 9. We talked about Foley's courage. The champion has plenty himself. There's no question about that. That's Foley down from that right hand. I don't know if he's going to make this one. 6, 7, 8. He's not.
Now, upon returning to boxing after his exile because of the draft evasion, you know, Muhammad Ali actually went on to fight a series of historical fights within the boxing world, you know, one of which was against Joe Frazier and was literally called the fight of the century. You know, it was the biggest boxing fight and one of the biggest events in the sporting world up until that point, and it happened in 1971. You guys all know how that works, you know, the rivalry between them was intense, you know, and Muhammad showed how much he would toy with his opponents, especially Joe, and eventually they would later on have a non-title fight many years later, which not even many, what am I saying? It was like just a couple of years later, I think, you know. The second fight actually happened, I'm gonna read for you guys here, in 1974, so 3 years later. It was the second fight between of their bout there, but it was non-title, you know. The third fight, however, in 1975, indeed was for the title fight, you know, and it was called the Thriller in Manila. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, unless I got my fights crossed here. Yes, the third fight was the Thriller in Manila, you know. He also had a very, very high pro fight against George Foreman, which is called the Rumble in the Jungle, and that was a really good one as well. Now, these fights here you guys can all see on YouTube. I believe you can even catch entire fights, the entire footage of from the fight from beginning to end if you're a fan of boxing, you know. Me having to sift through all of this footage, you know, on YouTube to get enough clips to show here, you know, was a little dull. I admit I'm not a fan of boxing, like I said before, but some of these fights were incredible, dude, you know. And now, throughout the 70s, Muhammad was very, very active. He did retire later in the early 80s, but he also had fights against, you know, Jerry Quarry and Bob Foster. Bob Foster and Ken Norton, you know. Ken actually broke Muhammad's jaw and gave him the second loss of his career up until that point. There was also, here we go. There was also this fight against Chamberlain. Not Will Chamberlain, by the way, but actually, oh, holy crap, it was. It was Will Chamberlain, the basketball player. Yes, I have no idea what the hell that even was, but there was also a fight against Jimmy Ellis, you know, that was a pretty crazy one too. That happened in 71. What the hell was Will Chamberlain doing boxing Muhammad Ali, bro? Is that guy freaking crazy? So now the thing is that after all of these fights, you know, after the fight against Joe Frazier, Muhammad did consider retiring because that was a really heavy fight, man. If you guys see footage of that on YouTube or in a documentary, that was so damn brutal, you know. They had cuts and bruises all over their faces, and Muhammad refused to watch footage of it later, you know, because he didn't want to go back and see hell. And he even later on went on to say that that was the closest to dying that he had ever been to up until that point. And Joe Frazier said, hey, you know what? You know, this is just the greatest fighter of all time in the world next to me, you know. I just can't. I can't. Actually, I think it's the opposite. Joe did, of course, have a lot of praise for Ali, but Ali went on to say that Joe was the best fighter he had ever fought alongside himself, you know. So he did consider retiring after that. He wanted to just chill, you know. His body was aching, you know. He just wanted to live on a farm and work for the people and concentrate on his family. So, but of course, he stayed active a few more years. And the thing with Ali is that he was just amazing at what he did, man, you know, because watching footage of him on YouTube does not do him justice, as it does for many athletes, you know. But just the way that he would elegantly, literally dance around his opponents, you know, and he would just kind of elegantly move his feet to and fro. And he invented and perfected the rope-a-dope technique, which is this thing in boxing that for a time people even considered that the fighting was rigged, you know, because it just seemed way too perfect, where Muhammad would just stay in the corner against the ropes and, you know, defend like this and basically just let himself be pummeled, you know, let the hits connect on his arms and his ribs, you know. You have to have a really strong chin when you're attempting this because you're going to get hit all over the place. Some of the blows will connect, you know, but when done right, you just sit back and let your opponent take the hits, you know, and they're going to tire themselves out, you know. They're going to be wasting energy hitting you while you're up on the ropes, and that's when you attack. And Muhammad did this, you know, blow after blow after blow after blow after blow. knowing that his opponent had little energy left because they just wasted all of it on him, you know, while he was there on the ropes. So then he would hit him with the left, the right, you know, he would dance around, you know, if you watch a fight on YouTube, you see the guy literally strafing around his opponents, man. He would dance circles around you, you know, trying to psych you out and tire you. The same thing with the trash talking before the fight, you know, he would get in the opponent's head, bro. He would just say a bunch of random stuff and taunt and taunt and taunt and taunt. So when you get in the ring, you want to go and decapitate the mofo, you're gonna give him all you got, then he's gonna hit you with the rope and you're going to just blow, like throw all of your energy in. I'm sorry for the little random cut that you saw. It's because this stupid ass camera keeps turning off. I don't care. I turned it back on immediately. I'm gonna keep going. Let's rewind just a few seconds to make sure you got the thing, right? So anyway, that's what Muhammad would do. The fight, every fight against him was physical and psychological, because he would get in your head and try to make you waste all of your energy on him, you know, over and over and over again. And before you knew it, he had you, you know. It was just, and he was also, what I was about to say before the damn camera cut me off was that he was fast. Muhammad was lightning freaking fast, man. It was really, really hard for you to predict what he was going to do, because he would very often predict and very accurately in what round he would knock the opponents out in, you know. So combined with all of that, and the way he would just very elegantly bob and weave, you know, like he would dodge your punches like he's in underwater or something, you know. It would be very, very elegant and fluid, and then he would hit you with really fast punches and you couldn't even see them coming. So this guy was basically, Muhammad Ali was essentially the Bruce Lee of boxing, you know, very fast, unpredictable, and deadly. And all of that weight coming at you, man, was not going to be pleasant. So now that I was able to finish that, we're going to take a look at the final clip here in the video. And this one here was his fight against Bob Foster, you know, in 1972, which was one of the few times where he actually bled, where Bob landed a blow above his eye and he started bleeding. But of course, you're not going to see that. What you're going to see is Muhammad knocking him the hell out.
A good right. Ali playing his game despite the blood, pretending to stagger. Another right, again the pretension of staggering. What is there in Ali that makes him feel the need to do that one? A good right, and again Ali is taunting him. You see the clock counting down. Oh, another knockdown, a quick left. The sixth knockdown of Bob Foster in this fight.
Now, in 1981, Muhammad Ali officially retired from professional boxing, because at that point the damage was already pretty severe, man, you know, because his final fight officially was just crazy, you know. It's just, it was really hard, man, because Sylvester Stallone, who played Rocky Balboa, you know, in the Rocky films, he was there watching that fight, and he said that it was like, you know, watching an autopsy being performed on a man who was still alive. You know, it was really ugly, that fight. So, and it was actually, there was a fight that gave Ali his very first ever loss by stoppage, you know, or technical knockout. So it was pretty crazy. That was actually quite possibly one of the worst fights in boxing history, you know, regardless of if it was Ali or not, you know. 3 years later in '84, he was publicly diagnosed with Parkinson's syndrome, you know, and although a lot of people thought that it was because of his boxing injuries, you know, he attested to that, and so did his physicians, you know, but his condition worsened, you know, and his family kept caring for him, but he maintained, you know, he kept being a public figure for many years, because after his boxing career, he focused a lot on religion and activism and philanthropy, you know, political activism, you know, because like I said, he was a very heavy civil rights activist throughout his career, you know, because he did suffer a lot of racism. Okay, what the hell is with the helicopter now? Well, that's a first, you know. I have been interrupted on this channel by dogs and motorcycles and construction noises, but a helicopter, that is a new one, man. I'm going to be talking about the passing of Muhammad Ali now, so maybe that's why. Many years later, you know, oh yes, also throughout his time as a civil rights movement activist, he was very close friends with figures like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, who we all know were unfortunately assassinated by extremists, you know. But the Will Smith movie Ali, released in 2001, really shows this relationship that he had with these people, you know, these figures in Black history movement, Black history, you know, that kind of thing. So, but I'm not going to be getting into that because it's just going to be way too complicated. I want to focus on his actual boxing legacy. Unfortunately, in 2016, you know, He was hospitalized in Arizona with a respiratory illness, and even though his condition was described as fair initially, it started to worsen more and more, and the following day he died from septic shock, and he was 74. And Muhammad really did die as a figure much larger than life and not within the sports world, you know. He was named Sportsman of the Century by Sports Illustrated, man, you know. This is just one hell of an incredible award. This is like the Presidential Medal of Freedom, you know, within the sporting world. And also the BBC called him the Sports Personality of the Century. So, and both of these awards were given to him when he was 10 or so years from retiring, you know. This was in 1999, so yeah, fairly recently, you know. Nobody even comes close to him within the sports. So, and you know, some of his nicknames include the Greatest, you know, simply the Greatest, you know, the People's Champion, and also the Louisville Lip, because he was born in Louisville, Kentucky, US, so maybe that's why the lip, because, you know, big lip, you know, maybe that's where it came from. It seems a little racist and derogatory, but, you know, who am I to operate that, you know? He also actually the thing with Muhammad is that throughout his career, he thrived so much in the spotlight because he boxed during an era where managers were the ones who kind of spoke out more for their players. You know, the boxers would kind of be a little more reserved, you know, and not really say too much. So the managers always did all the talking, but he became renowned for his provocative and outlandish persona, you know. Like I said before, trash talking, taunting, you know, before fights, during fights. During fights, he would actually really give it to them because sometimes if he would get a few punches, you know, if he got punched, he would kind of like, you know, feint like this, you know, like pretend he was actually affected, you know, just like play around with them, you know. And then when the opponent thought that they got the upper hand, boom, he would come out and just hit them again, you know. I think that you guys actually saw that on one of the clips that I showed. He was just pretending to be hurt, you know, messing around, and gotcha. He would sometimes do this with his hands, you know, like he would provoke even during fights, man, you know, like it was no big deal. He would not even guard all that often, you know, keep his hands down, even let him be punched a few times, you know. It's like, hit, come on, is that all you got? Come on, man, hit me again. Wow, is that all you got? You suck, man, you know. This guy was crazy, you know, during an era. This is why he was considered to be the greatest, because nobody did that during that time period, you know. Muhammad was just ahead of his time, and nobody could even come close, man, you know. I almost am getting interested in boxing because of him. Almost, because I still think the sport itself kind of sucks. But anyway, guys, that's it for today, okay? This is going to be, you know, just the final player profile athlete thing for a long time, you know, because I just can't take it anymore. I enjoy doing these videos, believe me, I do. I like researching, learning new things sometimes, you know, putting it together with the clips and stuff, but it's very exhausting, it's tiring, and I don't want to do it anymore. I don't even know why I made more work for myself doing this whole boxing thing here, but this concludes this cycle here, you know, fight night, you know, with Muhammad against Joe, and now talking about Muhammad, you know, it's all good. And I really hope you guys enjoyed it, because like I said before, you know, I'm not an expert here, you know. This is not my area of expertise. I have no idea. Maybe it might have seemed like I'm an expert because of all the things that I spouted here, but it's just I poured in, you know, some hours of research beforehand. I read on Wikipedia about him. I watched a few videos, you know, and I had the cheat sheet here with an online article. So it might seem like I'm knowledgeable on the topic, but trust me, I'm not, okay? I really am not. I just, I like to make it look like I am. That's what YouTube is about. I act like I know certain things, but in reality, I do not know anything about boxing whatsoever, man, you know? But anyways, so it's all good, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this one, even though it was, you know, very outside of my comfort zone, but hopefully, if you're a fan of boxing, then I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please go ahead and give this video a like, and also subscribe to my channel, because I release videos every single day. And while you're at it, hit the notification bell too, so you can know exactly what time I upload. And it's all good, baby. It's all good. This is Chazzy signing out for now, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Hopefully not sports related, because holy crap, I can't take it anymore. Roll the outro screen, and remember, guys, mama said knock you out.